What's up, nerds? So, as you probably noticed, this video started out a little bit different than any of my other videos recently, in that I didn't do like a snappy little intro to this video because I'm not actually going to be talking about comic books today. I had something else in mind that I kind of wanted to talk about, and it's pretty much very different. Well, not very different, but it's different from the thing that I normally discuss here on my channel, which is usually about, either movies or shows or comic books for the most part. And I was going to talk about this just in one of my live streams, but I decided, you know what, let me try and actually distill my thoughts down into a self-contained video, if at all possible. So I haven't written anything down. I'm not one of those people who writes up a script and then reads it to you in some sort of dramatic fashion. I'm not like that. As you know, I'm very off the cuff. And I wanted to discuss something that I've noticed has become a trend recently, which is that a lot of people are starting to find this new, I don't even know what to call it. I don't want to call it hatred. I don't think that's what it is. But they're starting to have a growing distaste for anybody who claims to be part of the LGBT community, which unfortunately, well, I say unfortunately, it's not like always unfortunately, but sometimes it can be a burden to be a part of this community, especially here lately, because a lot of people are screaming about knowing what this community is about on both sides of the issue, quite honestly. And there are some of us who are caught in the middle, left with a black eye, well, two black eyes really, in that we are also fighting against a lot of the things that we're seeing coming out, and that we are having to kind of explain away just because of the fact that we happen to be a part of either that, or we try and just distance ourselves as much as possible from it. But then also from the other way, that there are people assuming like, well, I understand exactly what you're about because I know what you like. So that means if I know that, then I know everything else about you. This hurts in both ways, and that's why I'm saying it leaves those of us like myself with two black eyes, and it leaves us with two struggles to fight against, because I don't get to just push back against my community. I also have to tell the people on the other side, like, hold on, hold on. Your problem is not with all of us. Your problem is with very specific fringe activists that make up a very small minority of this community. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about today. If you've noticed the title of the video, yes, what we'll be talking about is that your problem is not with a person's sexuality, it's with their personality. And that thought is something that came up recently while I was talking to my best friend on the phone. He's also part of this community, so we tend to kind of go back and forth. He's a little bit more of a leftist than I am. I'm not going to say he's all the way out there on like some fringe or anything, but he's always been a little bit more, for the social causes than I have. I've always been a little bit more of an individualist than him. So it's within this last year that he's been having more and more trouble where he's seeing, things coming out from this community, a community that he himself always was kind of the opinion that yes, we are oppressed, we are, always looked down upon, these things and that. And so it's only recently that he started coming to me, like, because I'm one of the only people he feels confident and safe enough to talk about it with, and telling me, what is going on with these people? What is the matter with them? Don't they hear the things that they're saying? I'm like, yeah, it's just that you haven't been paying attention to what they're saying. And that's where I'm saying you get a lot of these, he and I tend to call them new gays, but it's really, anybody, gay people, bisexuals, lesbians, trans people, all of them are doing this thing where they're wanting to have a continual victim mentality while also making themselves into a protected class. So it's like they are both arguing, they're taking the dual stances of saying, I'm oppressed by you, therefore you have to do everything I say and never do anything that offends me in even the slightest way, because I have been oppressed, and we need to stop that. We need to stop that, because if you look at just how much this community has been able to gain within just a few decades' time, and we did it through what? Not through fighting, not through trying to conquer or anything or trying to beat people over the head. We did it by showing love. We did it by showing community. We did it by being friendly, by saying, look, we're just trying to live our lives just like you. We're not trying to turn you into anything. We're not trying to make you accept us or like welcome you and force you into our home so you can see how we live. But recently, That has all flipped on its head, and now it seems that there are so many people, and they tend to be people who are younger in this community. The older people screaming about this shit are either a always they've always been problematic like that, and yes, I will use that word. Or B, they've been kind of brainwashed into assuming, oh, well, I'm doing this for the younger generation. So again, there again, it kind of ties back into the young people. And I don't mean to shit on younger people. I know not all of you are stupid. It's just that so many, y'all have the same problem that this community has. Y'all are letting the wrong people speak for you. And so that's where I'm saying we have this issue where so many of them are acting, like I said, like they're both victims and they both need to be, and they need to be protected at the exact same time. And the problem with that is that they're making us all look weaker. Like we can't take a joke, like we can't just handle any kind of criticism at all. Because I've seen people, and heard people try and throw up the whole like sexuality thing as a shield to immediately say like, how dare they say, X, Y, or Z to me because I am part of this community. And that just hurts me thinking about all of the people who have been oppressed like that. It hurts me and I cannot recover from that. First of all, if you weren't there, then you don't get to claim that victim mentality by trying to say, like, well, because other people went through it, name them. Tell me when you were there with them going through that situation, and then you might get a shred of that sympathy. But if you're just going to invoke what other people have gone through in order to make your opposition stand down or shut up, you are not doing any of us a service, and you're not doing yourself a service because you're also not listening to your opposition, which is a very important thing to do. Because yes, there will be people in the world who will oppose you, who will not like you based off of your sexuality. They are much or much fewer and far in between now, but they do still exist, and you need to accept that. You need to accept there are probably going to be people who just don't accept it, they'll be friendly with you, they'll be cordial with you, they're not going to just outright try and attack you, but they're not going to try and understand your way of life. They're not going to care that you have this loving partner or whatever, they'll still see it as a sin. You can't do anything about that. What people believe is what they believe. So long as they are not hurting you, they are not hurting you. You know what I mean? And this is where I'm saying we need to stop with this constant mentality of like, well, those people exist and we need to make them either go away or shut them out of society. You can't do that either because many of those people you might rely on in some way. You just don't know it. And it's not like they're going to somehow stop what they're doing just so that they can somehow hurt you. That's not how either of this works. So we need to stop with the victim mentality, and I'm so tired of seeing it coming up, and especially because so many people end up making their sexuality their whole personality, where it's like everything they do, every statement they make has to somehow tie back into their sexuality. If it matters to you that much that you have to make that your forefront, your facade, you're doing yourself a disservice because you're not letting people see who you actually are. You have taken one element of yourself and decided this is the most important thing about me, so I need to make sure that this is my totality. This is everything and the only thing that people will see when they look at me. Don't do that. You're only going to cause yourself a bigger problem. And I can speak on this because I went through that period too. I get it. And that's what I'm saying. I think that this mostly comes from younger people because I went through that period myself too. When you kind of realize what your sexuality is and you find a strength in that. You feel somehow more confident in yourself and you just want everybody to know. But here's the thing. Not everybody needs to know. You know what I mean? And at some point, you're going to look back and be like, wow, I really made an ass of myself. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to make so much damn noise. But for some reason, I chose to make all of that noise to announce myself. And I get it. That's what I'm saying. There's that feeling of empowerment of saying, this is who I am. I know that. And I am proud to announce that out into the world. That's how we ended up with Pride. I get it. I completely understand that mentality. But you need to tone it down. Especially because, as I said, we are not living in a world anymore where saying that is such a bold claim. There are so many people who are out and proud at this moment within every layer of society. In just about every professional field, especially when it comes to famous people, there's a whole variety of them there too. So there's nothing really bold about doing this. Yes, it's empowering for you to have that personal realization and be confident enough to say that about yourself. That is a very empowering thing, but that's a personal thing. That's not something that the entire world needs to celebrate with you just because you've had that revelation. I mean, imagine having to go through that anytime anybody figured out like what they wanted to do for work. And they just realized, like, today I am an engineer. Yeah, everybody's going to like that on their Instagram post, but that's going to be mostly their friends and family. Nobody else outside of that cares. You know what I mean? It's your own personal group. Let them celebrate that for you. But when you expect everybody that you meet or that ever lays eyes on you to immediately be able to understand that and just immediately start celebrating you, now you're creating a bigger problem, especially when that becomes an expectation, which unfortunately is the type of world that we're living in now. I've seen so many people, or I've heard it at least once or twice from like friends who have, coworkers who are a little bit more, well, not a little bit, they're a lot more out and proud, I guess you could say, just to put it as nicely as I possibly can, who do these things, who try and make their sexuality their whole personality, and it turns everybody else off to the point that some people are like, yo, I don't hate gay people, but I really hate this person. And that's the other thing. I don't like it to when someone has to make those qualifying statements. You know what I mean? If they take an issue with something that a gay person does or says, they immediately have to make a qualifying statement either before or after saying, well, but I don't hate gay people. I don't hate gay people, but, or I have this problem, but I don't hate gay people. I don't need to hear that. I know you don't. Especially if you're my friend. I know. I know you don't. If you're my friend, then obviously you don't. If you're friends with my boyfriend, obviously you don't. It's okay. It's totally fine. That's where I'm saying the problem isn't with the sexuality, it's with the personality. Because when that person has made that like conscious decision that this is all they want to ever display to the world, well, you can't help but kind of reject them for it, especially if it's not something that jives with your own personality, then definitely you're going to say, you know what, I really don't like that person. It doesn't mean you hate the entire group. It just means that person, their personality does not mesh with yours, and that's totally fine. You don't have to make any qualifying statements when you're complaining about what it is they do that annoys you, because you're not talking about an entire community. Even if you think you are, just because you notice similarities between the vast majority of people you've met does not mean you're describing the entire community. It means you're talking about one specific person who does not know how to actually balance their personality, or that, they just try too hard and it doesn't work for you. Both of those things are fine. But at the same time, I'm seeing too many people nowadays, especially who come up in this community, who want this to be their be-all, end-all. I know what my sexuality is. I know what my gender identity is, or whatever the hell. I know what that is. So I need everybody to always be constantly applauding me every day that I wake up, everywhere I go. I need a constant audience just applauding my bravery. No, you don't. What you need to do is learn to be a productive member of society. And why by that I mean, now that you know who you are, now that you know who it is that you can love or whatever, how about you try being a better person? To use that type of terminology. How about you just focus on trying to, spread happiness wherever you can, because we sure as hell need a lot more of it. And it used to be that our community was one of those groups that was just always entertaining to everybody. Because we're funny, we're fun, we're lighthearted, we always have been. But there's just this dark cloud that has been here for, I'm going to say, going on a decade now, possibly even longer. But there's just been this dark cloud of people who feel this constant need to always be somehow claiming victimhood and saying what a hard time it is to just exist, period. No, it's not. We've never had it easier. We really haven't. We get 2 months out of the year. Do you realize that? We get all of June. I don't know if anybody's been on Twitter, but apparently I found out through there that October is LGBTQIA plus. We're not going to get into it. It's apparently History Month. And then October 11th is National Coming Out Day. We get 2 months and just a specific day related to the day when we have that realization about ourselves. We have all of those things. Name me another group that has that much. That's what I'm saying. Stop acting like somehow the entire world hates you just because of who you are or who you want to be with. And understand that if somebody does reject you based off of that, that's fine. Those people do exist too. The same way that you want them to know you exist, you need to understand they exist. We all exist. We're all here together, and a lot of times we don't get along. That's why wars have been fought. That's why property lines are drawn, because we don't all just get along with each other that well. We have to be able to say, you know what? You stay over there, I'm going to be over here, and that's fine. That's totally fine. Doesn't mean that we hate each other enough to try and kill one another. It just means, you know what? I don't really like that person, so I'm gonna go ahead and go this way. And we'll stay apart. We figured out we don't like each other, so we'll just stay apart. It's that easy. It's that fucking easy, but instead, we've gotten to this point where, like I said, you have people who are trying to create a protected class, this protective bubble around us. Meanwhile, you have companies like Marvel and DC and Disney and all these other stupid ass companies who are trying to like use us as though we're somehow some sideshow attraction. They put us in their TV shows and movies and say, look, here's a gay person, here's a non-binary, here's a trans. Look at all of these wondrous things we have for you to come and look at. Don't you want to come to the show? Don't you want to buy a ticket? Meanwhile, we are not things. We are not caged animals for you to trot out whenever it's time for you to try and drum up more attention. We're people. We're people just like everybody else. And you try to make us seem like somehow we're something exotic to be added to a dish? That's not how this works. Stop treating us like things, like objects, like something that's going to somehow bring more attention to your project. How about you just focus on your project? If you've got something to actually entertain the masses, then go off of that. If you have nothing to advertise other than the fact that you have a diverse cast among not only race, but also sexualities and gender identities, then you're focusing on the wrong things. You're focusing on all of the wrong things. And not only that, it comes across as insulting to us, because then you turn around and say that you're somehow doing this for us so that we can see ourselves in something, as though we did not have the creativity or the ability to imagine ourselves as something more than just a regular person. We were already doing that before you came across or you came along and we're deciding, oh, I'm going to put you in a movie so that way you can feel like you can be a hero. I already knew I could be a hero when I was a kid, because I had all of the same inspirations that every other kid had. You know what I mean? That's not what made me identify myself with the hero. It was the idea of wanting to be a better person, wanting to overcome grand challenges and things like that. That's what makes the hero, not the fact that, oh, this person loves this person who happens to be the same sex as them, and then they both go on to defeat the bad guy. Don't you feel like you're the hero now? Well, I already felt like I could be one, but I mean, I guess that's kind of cool that you put those two characters together. I really don't care that much about it. But there are people who do, and that's where I'm saying I get pushback from at times from the other side, from people who are not part of the community, saying like, well, why aren't you doing more to tell people in your group that they don't speak for you? And I tell them, you know what, I do every single day. I tell them they do not speak for me. I present a dissenting opinion, because not only does somebody have to, I'm speaking what I know to be the truth. I'm doing what I can to put that message out there, because that's something that we need. We need a counterbalance. And for too long, it's been completely one-sided, because at some point along the way, we decided to let all of the fringe activists, all of the loudmouth, whiny crybabies speak up for us and set the narrative. And we're not doing that anymore. Or at least I'm not. I'm not willing to let them have the microphone any longer. I got my own. I have my own voice. I have no problem speaking out about whatever I feel like, because that is exactly how we came to the heights that we've attained. By being willing to actually step out and say, look, here's another version of us. And I'm not like any of the others before. I'm my own person. And over time, we kind of lost the plot. We lost sight of that, and we started deciding, no, we're better as some sort of hive mind, that we all need to agree on the same things and be pushing the same narratives. It needs to end. We need to get back to a sense of individuality, because we have it. We are creative people. We do not all need to look the same, sound the same, have the same thoughts, because we never have. That's what made our community so varied and beautiful. So we need to get back to more of that. And I really do hope that as we go forward, the younger generation is going to start believing that more and more. that they will be pushing to develop their own personalities that are not based off of what they read off of Twitter or what their friends have to say. Granted, we all take a little bit of something away from our friends, but stop relying so much on the opinions of others to determine what it is you believe and how you feel about things. Stop and take a second and just think, how do I feel about this? Not how would my friend react to this? Not how would my mom or dad feel about this? Stop and think, what do you think? What is your take on it? And then turn around and ask other people their opinions, because it is important to get other opinions. That's how we get ourselves more well-rounded. But when we automatically reach to the group to decide for us how we should feel about something and how something goes, we're not doing either ourselves or the subject being spoken about any favors. We have to be able to put in that work to actually think for ourselves. And I realize that's something that scares a lot of people. Having to think for yourself is a scary notion at times. I get it. But it's so much better for you in the end. You become a much more well-rounded person when you have your convictions because you arrived at them and you were able to develop them, not because you were told what is right or what is wrong. At some point, you have to start doing it for yourself, especially when you become an adult. There's no manual for this. There's no one telling you what the right or wrong thing is to do. There are a lot of shades of gray in there, and you'll have to figure out which one works for you. So, I don't really know what else I can say on this topic. I feel like I've probably said too much in many areas, and that's just fine. I've never been, like I've said, I've never been afraid of voicing my opinion. But I felt like it was an opinion that needed to be expressed, especially because as the days are going on, we're starting to see worse and worse opinions of our community. And we did not fight this long to try and get at least some modicum of respect to just turn around and piss on it, to turn around and use it as a weapon against people. We can't do that. If you truly feel like somehow you were picked on or marginalized or made to feel less than, stop and think that maybe you shouldn't do that to other people. Maybe instead you should try doing the opposite of what you perceive was done to you and make the world a better place. If that's what you're really focused on, then do that. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to treat people the way you wish you were treated. I realize it may hurt a certain part of you. There may be a part of you that thinks this is the wrong thing to do because they deserve it. That's the wrong side to listen to. That's the side that gets you into a lot of troubles. And that's coming from someone who gave it to that voice many times. One too many times when I was growing up. So take it from me. Someone who has the experience, you don't want to make those mistakes. Trust me. I know this sense of curiosity just has you thinking, but maybe I should try. Don't do it. So just moving forward, like I said, let's all try to get back to individuality, to just respecting each other again, and to understanding that just because someone doesn't agree with you or something that you do does not mean that they hate you. It does not make them your mortal enemy. You can coexist, like that stupid bumper sticker always says. But anyway, guys, if you're done here, then go read a book or something, like I always say. Go read a book. And if you're not, well, then I'll see you on my next video.